Take the Leap is the podcast where we get real about the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship and life. Sure, some folks make running a business look like a walk in the park, but let's be honest, it's more like a wild ride through a theme park with a lot of unexpected twists and turns.
Join us, your co-hosts, Ashlan
and Tory,
as we spill the beans on our own real-life experiences and shine a spotlight on some amazing guests. From the highs of success stories to the lows of epic failures. And hey, we'll even throw in some cringe-worthy, laugh-out-loud, embarrassing moments for good measure.
So buckle up and tune in every Tuesday and Thursday for a dose of raw, unfiltered truth about what it's really like to chase your dreams and build a business.
Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the startup world, we've got something for everyone. Even if it's just to make you think, wow, I'm glad I didn't do what they did.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Take the Leap podcast. We're super excited for today's guest, Rahti Gorfien. Rahti, for nearly 30 years, has been coaching scattered and overwhelmed creative professionals. She helps her clients focus so they can grab the focus of others, get seen, and make money doing what they love. Rahti has been recognized 3 times by Expertise.com as one of the 15 best life coaches in New York City, as a professional certified career and ADHD coach, and was recently recognized as one of the top ADHD coaches by CoachFoundation.com. She is the author of The 5 Emotions That Stop Success, which is now available as an audiobook. In the book, Rahti demonstrates how many neurodivergent creative entrepreneurs and artists are stuck because of negative emotions which don't allow them to stay in action. Thank you so much, Rahti, for joining us today, and welcome to the podcast. We are super excited to have you here and would like to start out like we do with all of our episodes to ask, what is your Take the Leap story? How did you end up becoming an entrepreneur and a coach to boot?
Well, yes, there were several leaps that led to that. A leap from being an actress to having my heart broken as an actress to living in an ashram to coming back and deciding that I had the spiritual grounding to try again, to realizing I was really good at helping people reach their goals, and my husband saying, you should charge for this, because I was doing all these weird jobs, like I had a business cooking for jazz musicians for a while, or I was a cater waiter. And he said, you're good at this. So I leapt from, it wasn't really a leap. I did them concurrently for a while, theater, stand-up comedy, and coaching. But gradually all of my attention and all of my creative fulfillment actually started coming from my coaching business. The big leap that came to me the first time you asked me that question actually was the time I invested a big chunk of change in a coach myself. I went to a 3-day workshop with a business coach, and it was very clear to me that I wasn't going to break the ceiling of where I was unless I took that leap of investment. Again, my husband, who wants me to make money, almost killed me because, what? $10,000? You just put $10,000 on a credit card. It was stressful. I didn't call to ask him for permission. Sometimes it's easier to act first and apologize later. I knew it was what I needed to do, and it's paid for itself. It's paid off. Since then, I've told him, you know what, I'm going to have a session with Monica. And he goes, oh, okay, great. Because she really did. She took me from, like $19K a year to my first $100,000. Wow. Yeah. Business coach. You need a business coach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I think, I've already told you this, but, part of the reason we're doing the podcast, and we have a course that goes along with this for folks to get assistance taking the leap. And, Tori and I had gone back and forth about like, how much should we charge for this? What should it be? And the fact that you say that investment, we're charging $2,000 for the course, or 200 a month.
Oh my
You
God.
you get help and
Oh,
assistance. I mean, and really, saying to yourself
well,
that I am
tell
serious
them I
about
said you're not charging enough, but whatever.
it. Right.
Feel really good. You should feel
Yes.
really good, and it's not, that's
Yeah.
help to get your support, knowing how good you are at what you do. $2,000 for a coaching package. I don't care if it's 3 months or a full year. That's a bargain as far as I can tell.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know things are weird. Things change. People's relationship to money changes. And people are worried now. There's so many weird things going on in the world. But ultimately, it is about taking a leap. Like you say, you have to take a leap and you learn. And then you take another leap. That's life. If you're not a little scared, it's probably you're spinning your wheels most likely.
Yeah. You're not challenging yourself enough.
Yeah. It's a really good way to put it. If you're not a little scared, what are you doing?
You're staying put is usually, or treading water,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay. Sometimes that's okay. I think sometimes we need the recovery. For instance, I had 2 dogs I loved so dearly, Max and Pookie. I had them for 10 years, and one after another, they have moved on. They were rescues who were already on. They were 5 and 6 years old when I got them. And my husband, I'm throwing him under the bus. He's like, I'm not doing another dog. Now, we're going to have another dog at some point. Meanwhile, I'm really enjoying the freedom. Of not having those 2 fur children. And sometimes you need to experience a lack of pressure. That's kind of not the greatest analogy, having a pet versus not having a pet. I think a better analogy would be a big push to get a project done and giving yourself that downtime to recover.
Mm-hmm.
That downtime is necessary. Sometimes people beat themselves up because they're not generating any ideas. Well, it's fallow time, just like the earth in winter. You have to give yourself rest.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So true.
Such a good reminder. Because it's true. If you're not giving yourself that rest, then you're going to stop being productive at some point too, It's going to make it worse. And
Absolutely.
Being productive isn't always the most important thing.
No, there's busy and there's productive.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes productive is doing one thing in your whole day.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you could be running around real busy and not get anything accomplished. So as you know, also as mentors, that's what people need to learn. That's what we help people learn. It's not about how many things you do. It's the impact of the actions you take. If you have set a goal for the end of the month and nothing you're doing on a given day or week pertains to moving towards that goal, what are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And it could be challenging to think that way, I think, especially because I work with neurodivergent people. The executive function includes something called working memory, and that's what gives us a sense of how long things take, a sense of what can happen in a certain span of time. And so it can be hard to look ahead, but when you learn to and then plan backwards, reverse engineer, then anything you do, once you've reverse engineered it, you can connect to that goal a month from now if you've worked backwards to it. So you can feel okay doing a bit of research for a half hour because you know what it's moving towards. experience. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. That's so great. I love that. Well, knowing what you know now, what's something that what's a piece of advice that you would give your younger self when you were first starting out?
A piece of advice I've given my younger self. Oh, so many things. So many things. You're enough.
Oh my gosh, I
That's
love
the
that.
advice I think. You are enough.
Yes.
That I would say was my the scourge, not believing I was enough, constantly comparing myself to where other people were in their careers,
Hmm.
not feeling secure enough in myself to know that maybe at a certain time it wasn't right to have a relationship. I didn't need a boyfriend. I needed to focus on what I was doing. I was enough. That's what I would want to say to myself.
Yeah. That's something I'm still trying to remember. I have that written down a couple places. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think many entrepreneurs as well deal with that. And
Oh, sure.
if we could remember that every single day, I think it would help so much.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Well, it's easy to tell when you're not feeling like enough because you don't feel good.
Yeah.
There's some negative emotion going on, whether it's depression or just this free floating anxiety, like you should be somewhere. And that's a cue to
Yeah.
just pause
Hmm.
and get back in your body and remember you're enough. You're here. Right.
Yeah.
And then once you do that, you can access the part of your brain that points you towards constructive action.
Mhm.
Anything that's fear driven action usually doesn't pan out too well. And it comes from that sense of not enoughness.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I feel like every entrepreneur needs to hear that too, because when we
Yeah.
first start out, we have so much imposter syndrome. For when you
Mm-hmm.
get the first client, when you get the first person who pays you, and you're just like, oh my gosh, and then you lose a client, or things change. You know what I mean? Like you get that kind of sense that you're like, ah shit,
Oh,
what do we
it's such a
do?
burden. It
Like,
is such a burden, that fraud factor, man. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think all of us need to hear that we are enough and we're doing it.
enough.
We're making it
Yeah.
work, and it's okay.
Hmm.
I think it's hard too when you're first starting out because you don't feel safe being transparent about where you are
Right. Right.
in your business. And that's a little dicey.
Hmm.
For me, transparency is the best policy
Mhm.
because if I'm trying to, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're giving them TMI, you know what I mean?
Right.
But you're just letting them know where you're at. I'm really excited to be working with you. To be honest, we're just starting together and I'm a little nervous.
Mhm.
And then you go with your session. You don't have to say, listen, you're my first client.
Yeah.
you know, but you can be transparent without the details and just be present in your body.
Yeah.
You'll do a much better job. You'll be much more present for your client.
Well, at the
And
end of the day, we're all human.
yeah,
So we all understand what those emotions feel like. And
yeah,
so being able to be honest and say things like, I'm new and I'm really looking forward to showing you what
yeah.
I can do. I'm a little nervous because I'm brand new, but thank you for trusting me because I'm looking forward to this. It's just all about the way you present it, but you can say those things and I feel like people will connect with you more the more
I
authentic you are.
absolutely.
Mhm.
You don't have to have that burden of pretend that you're further along than you are, or that you're something else other than you are that you think you should be.
Right.
It's absolutely
Yeah.
Mhm.
You don't have to have all the answers either, no matter where you
no.
are in your career. And I think people are okay with you saying, I don't have the answer for that. And maybe I can get it, or maybe that isn't something that I answer, like it's okay. Like
Oh,
we don't have all the answers in life.
yeah. Sometimes I'll say to somebody, a client, well, I'm not sure, but I'm going to look that up. Or more often, I'll say, I don't know, not really my area, but I'm going to refer you to somebody who does
You can do
this.
that.
Absolutely, especially I think as a coach. I'm not really sure what you're doing is business mentoring. I think more is that right? I'd be curious to
Yeah.
know a little more about what your business, what you're establishing for
Yeah,
for
we
the
have
training.
the online course, and then it will be kind of mentorship, creating a container and a community for folks to step into, because we know, like, Tori started her business 6 months before me, and it was just so helpful to have somebody who you could kind of, celebrate the wins with, and also commiserate. Like, this is, entrepreneurship is not easy. It's
That's
not,
right.
it's,
No.
I feel like a lot of what we get fed on Instagram and things is people with these really perfect, curated, I made $100,000 in 10 days. And I'm like, you did? Really? You
Yeah.
did?
Oh my God. It's so.
You know?
And
Um,
I feel a need. You're having said that about. Well, I have a tattoo, a beautiful tattoo, by the way. Um, I have a need to backtrack a little because, yeah, I've hit the 6-figure mark and then I went down. You don't just get to, and so sometimes I think we get the impression from testimonials and other business owners that, oh, I'm a 6-figure something or other. You don't know what's going on in their business today, and
yeah.
life is change. And you can expect, if you're in business, that you're going to have ups and you're going to have downs. And it's not an indictment
Yeah.
of who you are. It took me so long to just detach from the amount of money I made as a reflection of my worth
Yes.
and who I
Yes.
was professionally.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is
Back to that, you are
so.
enough. Like,
You're enough. Well, how can you
Mhm.
not be? You know,
Mhm.
you better just accept that you're you, that, any other part is taken. You're enough. Right?
yes.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that too about, hitting the six figures. I mean, some people, they spend a lot of money to hit the six figures, so it's just like,
Hey,
it's
right. They
it's
take a
it's not
loss.
just, yeah, it's not just revenue. It's sometimes,
Right.
is it profit?
Yeah.
Is it
Oh
revenue?
yeah,
What
I
were
hit
your
6 figures,
expenses?
and
Yeah.
I took a $26,000 loss
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's right. You went all back in the business, and your first year, that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's a good chance that's going to be your first year.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Running in the
regardless,
red, running in the black, all of that thing. Yeah.
yeah. And if you make less, and you manage to make a profit. If you make like 40K and somehow you were able to get to that mark and still make a profit, wow, feel good about that. Feel real
Yeah.
good. I think as soon as you make a profit, feel real good. As soon
Yeah.
as you're able to buy yourself a pair of shoes, celebrate, really
Yes.
enjoy that.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I
So,
have the last of our kind of standard questions before we put you in the hot seat. What's your why? Why do you do the work that you do? Why coaching? What gets you motivated and up and running to do this?
well, first of all, I will say that I have to renew my why repeatedly. And I think that for a lot of people, that's if you're feeling like you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, that's a sign you need to recover. That's a sign that you need to do some introspective work, not just try to push through it. Because if you lose your why, you lose your way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my why is to give people what I didn't get as a neurodivergent artist entering the theater. And what I didn't get were the emotional tools that I needed to navigate a very bipolar business. they tell you got to have a thick skin, you got to be tough. What the hell does that mean, right?
Mhm.
The fact is, it's counter to being an artist. To create your work takes the utmost of vulnerability. And what we're not taught, and it could be you trying to enter into business as an entrepreneur, not necessarily the arts, what we're not taught is that there's this whole other warrior skill set, philosophical skill set, which for me is grounded in stoicism. The ability to move through experience, have whatever you're feeling, but contain it, not bring a lot of drama around, and abide with whatever's going on as you work through it and as you learn from it, right? Uh, if I had had someone tell me that or teach that to me and teach me the skill of separation, just like I said, I am, my income is not a reflection of me. How I feel is not who I am. And the problem is so many of us learn to identify how we feel as who we are.
Mhm.
And so when we get rejected, it's an incredibly shaming experience if you're not able to make that kind of separation. So that's what my work is about. It's about arming people with the tools for creative survival and emotional resilience that will allow them to succeed at their passion.
Mhm.
I love that answer.
Well, that's what it is. And I'm glad I said it out loud because I need to hear it out loud myself.
I also love that you said you started it by saying I have to always change my why. And I like that. I like that it kind of evolves as you go along, right?
Well, what I think I said, and yes, I think it can evolve. It is a little different. You're right. But what I think what I said, and it may not have because things are coming out of my mouth at this age that I have no idea. But I have to reconnect with my why.
Mhm.
You
And
know,
reconfirm,
and
reconfirm,
reconfirm my
recalibrate.
why.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, yeah. I think at one point it was vaguer. So you're right. I had to. You're right, Victoria. At one point it was something like my why is helping people feel free enough to be seen. But I hadn't really delved into the methodology or the psychological, neurological technology of what that takes.
Right.
Mhm.
And I'm a lot clearer about that now,
Yeah.
30 years in.
That's so powerful. Well, are we
Yeah.
ready for the hot seat questions?
Oh, absolutely, she said. I get hot seat, hot seat. I just want to invite you. I'm trying to get this to take. And actually, there are other coaches who do this too. I didn't make this up, but I like the idea of a spotlight. These are the spotlight questions.
Spotlight question.
Ooh.
I
Let's
like
do that for
that.
season 2.
Let's do that. I love that.
Spotlight questions, because the hot seat, it feels like I'm going to get
Yeah.
electrocuted or something.
Oh yeah, we're not going to really electrocute you, and
Okay.
they're not really hot, like scary questions by any means.
All right, let's
Well,
go.
the first one's just a fun one. What is the best and or worst advice that you've received in your career?
The worst advice, I don't even know if it was advice, but I had an acting teacher who told me, "You're not going to work for 5 years after you get out of here." I don't know what the purpose of that was. Maybe it was so that we didn't put pressure on ourselves or whatever. But it created a self-fulfilling prophecy. It was a weird thing to say, I think.
Yeah.
I'd be so quippy back to them and be like, then what am I paying you for? Why am I here? If I'm, if my return on investment is not for over 5 years, then you're
I
not
What are
doing
we doing?
your job right, you know?
Yeah, you would, right? But it was a different time.
It was a different time. Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like, now we can be more,
Now,
more in the face with people and be like, then what am
because
I
you
paying?
don't know, nobody knows,
Yeah.
right? And the arrogance of saying, "I know what's going to happen with you. You're going to kick around," and I mean that there's an arrogance. Anyway, next question.
Well, since we work together, I know about your audiobook that just recently came out, The
Yeah.
5 Emotions That Stop Success.
Mhm.
And I also know you had a great webinar recently about these that, we can share and promote. But what was it like having to audition to be the voice for your own audio or for your own book and do the audiobook?
It was annoying. First of all, I will say that will happen if you are not a household name and you are being published. You have a lot more control if you self-publish. I wouldn't have had to audition for my own audiobook if I had self-published. And it was hilarious because I don't have a studio or anything, and I I'm an actress, so I have the transferable skills to do an audiobook. But I don't have a recording booth in my closet like a lot of voice people do, and usually I was putting like meditation cushions against the wall and going under blankets, and I mean it took me hours to create this little 5-minute thing just to let them know that it wasn't going to be a hot mess, and it took tenacity. They said no initially, and I had to not take no as an answer. I had to actually walk my talk. I knew I was the one who needed to read this book. I also knew I prefer to hear audiobooks read by the authors, whether they're famous or not.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying there aren't some authors who really have no business reading their own book. They could make a hash of it. I actually did start listening to one audiobook like that. And, I couldn't listen to the whole book. So that's what they're afraid of, I guess. But, I mean, for the most part, you have somebody who's trained. You would think they would let me do it. I had another friend published with these guys too. And she is a professional, award-winning audiobook voiceover artist.
Oh my goodness.
They made her audition. So I was like, oh, okay, all right. I feel a lot better now.
Maybe it's
Part
just
of
their
it.
standard practice. They're just like everybody has to do it.
I guess so. But it was scary. It was scary. But again, I wasn't over-identified with it.
Mm.
And that's what I didn't have as a young actress, the ability to separate who I was from whatever I was doing.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, kind of switching gears a little bit, kind of back to your clients and your coaching.
Yeah.
What are some of the common challenges that your clients face, and how do you kind of help them overcome those obstacles?
Well, bunches of things come to mind. I have clients return to me sometimes because they're happily writing. They have a nice day job that supports. I call the day job a patron of your art. You don't have to have one forever, but it's not necessarily the enemy of your work. It gives you structure in your day, frankly, when you're first starting out. And so sometimes people come back to me because they've been laid off and suddenly they're not creating. Isn't that interesting? I mean, this is typical with, people who are neurodiverse sometimes thrive in a structure that's not their own if they're doing something that is calling on their strengths. And then when they lose that, They just don't know what to do with themselves, and they stop doing their own work. So then it's a two-pronged thing of helping this person make the baseline income they need to make and find a new gig and get back to the writing. Fast forward, this particular person finished their thesis for their MFA. They're getting called back for interviews. It's going to happen, and that's very gratifying. And if you're in isolation, a blow like that can set you back. And frankly, I'm thinking they could have come to me sooner, right? They spun their wheels for like 6 months, right?
Oh, 6 months is a long time. That's
It's
a long time to get.
unusual, not unusual. Because at first, some of that 6 months was recovery.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of that 6 month was needing to take some time to grieve. Another reason people come is they have a situation where uh, they've had a great success and then they have to do it again. I had a filmmaker who he won awards for this jury, to jury festivals, and he had an agent, and all of a sudden he had to come up with a new project and talk about fraud factor. That is a really great reason to come back to coaching, to get grounded in, and sometimes people don't even know how they did it. There's a great story about Laurence Olivier. Look him up, kids. Laurence Olivier, great actor. And he was after an amazing performance, he was like despondent, and one of the other actors asked him, why are you so happy you got the standing ovation? Everybody's, I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I did it. That was his anxiety. So working with a coach allows you to uncover what may be a very mysterious process for you, but you do have a process.
Right.
And sometimes that process needs to change. As you were saying earlier, your why needs to change. Sometimes the way you go about doing something needs to change because the circumstances of your life have changed. And a case in point with this filmmaker, when they made their first movie, didn't have a family, didn't have kids. So corralling their attention was a new ball game.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of stories about people, why people come to me. Sometimes I had one person come to me because they didn't think they weren't sure they wanted to stay in the business they were in the creative industry they were in.
Yeah.
And they had idols. They had people they idolized who were like in the stratosphere, right? Like really famous people they were trying to like live up to, And they came close. They would have a certain degree of success, but it never felt like enough. And it never felt like enough because of that compare and despair. They loved what they were doing. They loved the work they were doing. In this case, I'm talking about somebody in an opera singer. But, they got to go on as an understudy at the Met for a lead, but because it was never that fantasy, they were on the cusp of quitting. And counterintuitive as it may seem, I had to get them to give up their dream. We're told, oh, dreams can come true, Walt Disney and all this shit. Well, we have a very narrow image in this culture of what a dream coming true is. And sometimes a dream can keep you from living your life and actually experiencing your own success. So the work for this person was letting go of that dream and coming to terms with the fact that their career was not going to look like anybody else's career. They might hit the stratosphere, but they may get really famous. They may not. The question is, do they love it? Do they still love it? Do they still want to do it? The answer was yes. And so I think coming to coaching kept them creating their art because it allowed them not to condemn it for not looking like somebody, their career for not looking like someone else's.
Yeah.
That's a great reason to come to coaching.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I really love that example because I had heard from somebody a long time ago. I don't even know who to attribute this to, but you can only live your life. You can't
Yes,
live
right.
somebody else's life. And I do think that, like, creatives and entrepreneurs, that is something to remember. You know, we have a lot of control being entrepreneurs of what we do and what we don't do and who we work with and who we don't. But you know, you only get your shot at this. You can't be like, I'm going to be like so and so. And I do find that folks, they spin their wheels and they spin their gears and they try so hard to fit into this thing that they lose themselves. And we'll go back to your saying, you are enough. You are enough as who you are, and you can be you, and you don't need to try to be somebody else.
There's another thing I want to pick up on in what you're saying, and that is the idea of you get your shot.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? When you miss the bus, eventually another bus comes.
That's true.
And that's another mythology in the arts that is very damaging.
Mm-hmm.
That you only get one shot. Do you remember Flashdance, the movie Flashdance? Right,
Yeah.
Jennifer B. She's prepping for this big audition for this ballet company. And the drama of it, what if she doesn't get chosen, if she doesn't make it? This is the whole drama. This is her shot. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, she'll go to another audition. What's the fucking deal?
Yeah.
She'll get some feedback if she's lucky. She'll go back. She'll practice. She'll audition again next year. What the fuck is the big? Pardon my language. I don't know if you have to edit out the F word.
No. We're an explicit podcast.
It's not just one shot.
No.
Yeah.
In fact, how are you going to learn if you don't fall on your face? It's a whole concept of falling up.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's so true. It's so true. It's so hard to remember
in the arts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the arts. And I do think coaching is an art. I think entrepreneurship, there's an art too.
Mm-hmm.
Also.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even in the short time that I've been doing this, I've changed around the way I do things, and you adjust to the times, and you have to, and that's just, it's no different than other parts of life as well. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, pivoting a little bit for this next question. So I want you to tell us a little bit about building your business and how you've learned to trust folks to help you with different aspects. And I'm just going to use, me as an example. We work together on marketing. I think one of the things that we're planning out for season 2 of this podcast is to talk to people about what comes next, right? You started your business and what comes next. So I would love for you to speak about that, because you've been doing this for, nearly 3 decades as well.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I learned to delegate. I was a personal assistant to an actress for 30 years, part-time personal assistant. Yeah. And we became also very close friends. I learned about delegating really from her. She had what she called her staff. You would think that she was, famous like Betty Davis, but she was just a journeyman actress. She always worked. That's the other thing. You can be successful and nobody knows your name. She was constantly working in theater, in television. And so she had people walking her dog, doing her checkbook. Back then you had to balance your checkbook. That's a very arcane thing now. I don't think you have to do it. But there were certain things she learned that I was good at and I wasn't good at. And she would delegate according to people's strengths. First, she hired you if she felt comfortable with you. You had to have something going. And she had to have the chemistry with you. And she soon learned I was not the person to balance her checkbook. I was really good at walking her dog and making her salad dressing. That's I shone there. And she had little names for us like Rose Red. I was Rose Red. Then she had Rose White, who did more of the administrivia, you know. She was such a funny lady. I miss her every day. And then, learning to really seriously delegate it as a business owner was something I started working on when I was working with my business coach, because that is a skill. Delegating is a skill. And also, you're always hiring. Some people are always hiring more than others, I suppose. And there's a saying that you hire slow and fire fast. I hire slow. I don't know if I fire as fast as a lot of other people, because if I recognize strengths in someone, and then, I can see clearly that something else is, the gears are grinding, it's not working well, I'm going to reallocate the tasks to someone else. I have a couple of VAs. Ashlan, you do my marketing for me. I have another person who is my client manager. And, the thing is also, there's some people make these arbitrary rules like 3 strikes. Here's my rule. It's not 3 strikes. It's the same mistake 3 times.
That's a good one.
Yeah. If someone is making the same mistake and they do it 3 times, that might be a problem. I've come up with policies for myself, and one of my policies is if you ghost, if you don't show up when you say you will, and I don't know why, that don't work for me. I got it. That's not going to work. That's not professional. Believe it or not, that has happened. So it is a skill, and it sucks to have to let people go, but you can do it lovingly, graciously. I've been fortunate in that several times when I knew I had to let someone go, they probably felt it and resigned, They gave me notice. Yeah. But also sometimes you have to have come to Jesus moments with people. I have a wonderful bookkeeper, but it became clear that his particular peccadillos weren't working, and he was not getting my numbers to me by when I needed them. And it was a painful conversation, but it wasn't personal. And I was able to have it. I love the words "I noticed." This is something I learned from my coach. When, rather than say, "You did this wrong," I could say, "I noticed that you get the numbers to me like a week, 2 weeks after the middle of the month, and I really need them by the middle of the month." And then if that doesn't happen, we ended up having another conversation that was something along the lines, I notice you haven't been able to do that. What's going on? Look, let's give it another 30-day trial. But after that, if you can't get the numbers to me by the middle of the month, I'm going to have to, we're going to have to discuss the arrangement here. And he got it together. I'm very glad he did. Because, also when you hire someone and you let them into your weird little world and your weird little business, that takes a lot of trust.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of courage. So you want people to succeed as a business owner, and you have to be honest when they can't.
Yeah. That's such good advice. It's really powerful. Well, kind of switching gears again, back to your coaching clients. What are some practical strategies you recommend for people who have a really hard time either staying productive or who are easily overwhelmed? I know you work with a lot of neurodivergent people. Like what would you give them? What sort of advice and strategies and tips would you give them so that they can work on their craft every day and feel productive?
Well, when I coach someone, I do some mental fitness training concurrently with the coaching sessions. I learned a technique called positive intelligence. Um, this guy, Shirzad Shamin, came up with it. They did factor analysis on it, research. They really identified different personality qualities. And what it is basically meditation light, meditation for people who can't meditate, right? Uh, you have to be able to come back to base, first of all. So, for instance, this is a really simple example of a PQ, or there's IQ, there's EQ, emotional intelligence, and there's PQ, positive intelligence. And so they do PQ reps. All right. So, for instance, if you put two fingers together and you rub them, you close your eyes and you rub them with such attention that you can feel the ridges in your fingertips, and you do that for a few minutes. You notice whether you're breathing, and you do breathe, and you keep bringing your attention back. Just a couple minutes of that calms down the nervous system, allows you to embody, come back into your seat. It's a pattern disruptor. And a lot of times what we need are pattern disruptors when we get hijacked by email, by our emotions. All of a sudden we see someone else doing something very much like what we're working on, and we suddenly become despondent and despaired, and we want to give it up. Well, anytime something like that happens, you've got to go to ground, as the vampires say. The first thing you have to do is get grounded. So in some form or other, I would say all of my clients are trained in some form of mindfulness. I give them training in some kind of mindfulness. Because, again, what I didn't get when I was a young theater artist was that sense of self beyond what I did. I was so identified with being an actor that when it didn't go well, I didn't know who I was. You better get happy first. That's what I would say. Get back in touch with your sense of well-being. Then you can look at what's going on. And the thing is, other than the mindfulness that is probably across the board with people, there's no cookie cutter way to work. Some people do well with the Pomodoro method, if you know what that is. It's basically timing that they have found, again, through neuropsychological research. 25 minutes of focus with a 5-minute break works really well for a lot of people, and doing like 3 or 4 rounds of Pomodoro. The thing about the 5-minute break is you don't task switch. You don't go to another type of work. You really take a break, a physical break. I have a technique I call the workday sandwich that I didn't make up. My coach made that up. But basically, it's a very loose way of structuring your day that works for a lot of people, which it gives them a sense of grounding in the morning. It gives them a sense of when they stop working at night. I also sometimes assign a workday salad, which is basically different. It's different all over. At any point, there may be something that you need to do during the day to take care of yourself. And maybe it's meditate, maybe it's journal, maybe it's pull a tarot card. I don't know. But it's go for a walk. But at some point during the day, you have a checklist of things that when you start to feel the need, you look at your checklist and you go do to take care of yourself and reground. So different things work for different people. But those are a few techniques.
I love that. I love the, what did you call it? The grounding sandwich? or the workday
The
sandwich.
workday sandwich.
I
The
love
first
that.
slice of bread. Yeah. The first slice of bread. It has, and the bread's pleasure, right? It's what my coach calls goddess time, right?
I
That
love
time in
that.
the morning. Not, I love to write in the morning. I love to have a cup of coffee with dark chocolate in the morning. There are things I do in the morning. There has to be a pleasure component, something to give yourself. You need to look forward to something sometimes to get out of bed. For me, it's that coffee and chocolate, right?
Yeah.
And you need to know that there's life before work. Don't
Yes.
hit the email. Don't hit the phone as soon as you wake up. That slice of bread comes before the technology, right? And at the end of the day, you do, as entrepreneurs, I think, sometimes have to decide when to stop,
Yeah.
because you're never going to be finished. You're always going to have more work to do. So, for me, it's 7 o'clock. I'm done. 7 o'clock, I'm done. Then there's the second slice of bread. And that's, my husband walks me, because otherwise I don't leave. I work from home. He has to walk me. So that's part of my second slice of bread, and then making dinner, whatever. But that's the workday sandwich. The meat is the work between the slices.
I love that.
Yeah. Oh, it was revolutionary for me. I love it.
Yeah, that separation is really important, I think, for folks to have those kind of things to look forward to, and fun and play and different things that break up your day. Because if not, we don't live to work.
Exactly. Work is part of life, not the other way around.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why a lot of us are entrepreneurs, because we want that freedom and that flexibility.
That's true. And isn't it true that so often you go into it because of that, and then find all of a sudden you're working harder than when you had a job? You're not giving that to yourself. So there are ways to do it and profit,
Yeah.
and it's critical to find find those systems. It made me think of something. I'm not sure what it was. Oh yeah. Also, another reason I think people become entrepreneurs, and there are a lot of neurodivergent entrepreneurs, people with ADHD. And I have my own little diagnosis that I'm not going to necessarily give, but um, I'm an entrepreneur because I have no business working for anybody else. It's just not a good idea. No one is happy if I'm trying to work. The only job I was able to hold on to was that personal assistant gig for 30 years, because it was so esoteric. It was so eccentric. It was so idiosyncratic. I would lie down on Anna's couch and take a nap for an hour. You can't do that at work, It was so, she was like my other mother. You can find, that was a situation. And she was so nuts. And I'm so nuts that we could love each other. We
Matched.
would complement our insanity. It was like yin and yang. She had the weirdest little ways that she needed you to do things, and you had to do them that way. So, and I didn't mind that, if I could break down and cry for 5 minutes and tell her why I broke up with my boy, if I could have freedom, if I could go to a refrigerator and eat something, right? If I could be myself completely, I didn't mind folding her T-shirts in a very specific way. I saw people come and go over those 30 years. People didn't last a week very often, but I was there, man. I could handle Anna. I could handle her. That's the only job I think I was okay in, that I was able to hold. And it was, but it was limiting. Even that, I wasn't gonna, I didn't want to be a personal assistant. But corporate life, corporate situations, a lot of my clients are people who have no business in a corporate environment. Not good for anybody.
Mhm.
So that's another thing to realize. It's hard to be an entrepreneur, but if you could happily work at a job, do that.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, I used to hear people say, you know, I'm an actor because I have to do this. I have to do this. But if you don't have to, don't do it. Now, I'll tell you something. My heart was broken by the theater, and I really wanted to be an actor, and I didn't get to be. So, and I still survived, and I found something to do where there are transferable skills from being an actor and a playwright. Because as a coach, you have to be able to listen. You have to hear someone's narrative. You know, that those are acting skills. Acting is not faking. Acting is living fully in an imaginary circumstance, right? So when I hear famous actors say something like, well, I mean, I had to be an actor because I couldn't do anything else, I just want to say, you know what? You're just fucking lucky. And if you were not at the right place at the right time, which is not to say you don't have talent, these are very talented people. If you did not have the karmic fortune to attain the success that you have, you would have become a coach, or you would have done something else. You would have taken up a trade, right? You would have been a plumber or an electrician or something. You would have. Do not tell us that, oh, you had to because you couldn't do anything else, because that's another one of those damaging mythologies in this country.
Yeah.
It's just not fair to anybody.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it doesn't like honor the fact that like it's right place, right time, right circumstances, who you knew, who let you in the door. You know, there's a lot of other things that go in that people forget to talk about. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
And yes, sometimes there is self-sabotage, but what you're saying is absolutely true. And of course, if you start thinking that, well, there's something wrong with you because you're not right for the part or whatever, I mean, that way madness lies. And, you know, I fell into that over and over again. Or, I should be able to do this. Meryl Streep can do anything. Well, in point of fact, she can't. And I'm sure she's auditioned for things she didn't get. We just don't hear about it.
Yeah. Many people don't actually talk about the things that they didn't get. You know, you only see part of the story. You don't get to see the.
You only see the glamour.
Right. You see the A reel.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
no B and C roll.
You don't see the B and C roll. You don't see what's on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Yeah. Until they write the memoir, and then you're like, oh shit.
Maybe. Yeah.
They
went really generous about that. I think there's I find Eddie Izzard's there's a documentary on Netflix. I don't know if it's still there, but it's about Eddie Izzard and his early career. And he lets us see him really suck. Yeah. Busking is street performing, and he's on the street and he's sucking. And I'm like, bless you. You know? Good for you. Being secure enough in your success to let people know that you were just not full blown out of the head of Zeus brilliant. You know?
Nobody is.
Nobody is.
No.
No. Yeah. You know, a lot of times when people wonder about something they really want to do, but they know it's really hard, the question I ask them is, well, if you really want to do it, are you willing to do it really badly? Because if you're not, it's going to be real hard to get good at it. Yes. Your perfectionism is going to shut you down right away. And I think what helps sometimes is to remember that perfectionism is not excellence. Excellence is a process. Excellence happens cumulatively over time, working at something. And in a way, it's not our business. It is not the business of the doer. Excellence, it's a byproduct of practice. Whereas perfectionism, that's just grandiosity, frankly, which is one of the 5 toxic emotions.
Yeah.
thinking that you're going to be perfect at something, and then feeling like you shouldn't let anybody see your work because it's not, or you shouldn't, if I can't play guitar like Segovia, I'm not going to play guitar, that's perfect.
Yeah. Well, you got to put in the hours and you got to put in the work, I mean, if you think about, the sports folks and like the people who are where they are, I mean, they put in thousands and thousands of hours to get there. And why would I also say, why would you be any different? You know what I mean? Like, we don't just come out the womb and be like, okay, we're going to make it. I didn't think I was going to be doing what I'm doing today when I was, younger. I thought I love Jurassic Park. I thought I was going to be a damn paleontologist. And then I figured out it's a lot of work and a lot of begging for money.
And you're doing something you enjoy, that you're good at, and whatever it is. I mean, you could have decided to be a paleontologist, I guess. However, it would have been, you can still do it if you want, I suppose.
That's true.
We have to find a way to be fulfilled and complete every day of the journey to excellence. Otherwise, it's pretty hard to sustain for the long haul. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I'll be happy when. That's
be happy now in the moment. Yeah. Be happy in the moment.
You don't know what's going to happen, right? And that's part. I think that's part of stamina. Enjoying your life. It's hard to have stamina if you feel like my life sucks, but I got to hang in there because once I get here, you're going to burn out, and that's not what develops stamina. It's kind of counterintuitive in a way.
Well, Rahti, thank you so much for having this conversation with us. We really, really appreciate you being on with us. Is there anything that you want to plug, or where can folks find you? And we'll put it all in the notes.
You're going to put it all in the show notes, but you can find, you put my Linktree, whatever it is. Is it
Linktree? Yeah.
Linktree. The dot is for the EE. Coach Rahti /Coach Rahti. All things Coach Rahti are there, and including a link to schedule a free conversation if you think maybe we could work together. So I appreciate you asking that.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. This was such a great conversation.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time on the Take the Leap podcast. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Take the Leap podcast. We hope you found useful takeaways you can apply to your entrepreneurial journey. Subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and keep in touch and follow us on Instagram. If you have business questions, shoot us a direct message or leave us a comment. We'll try to cover it in an upcoming episode. And visit our website, taketheleap-today.com, for more resources like our online course that accompanies this podcast.